the turnout in the general election was pretty low anyway, so there didn't appear to be that appetite for the Labour government. People were just so keen to get rid of the Tories that they stayed at home, who might traditionally voted Tory or they voted Reform. So there is a lot of work for the Tories to do if they want to get back. So I don't think there was that love for Keir Starmer in the first place, and they continue to be the poll where, he was just a bit sort of boring, the people didn't really know what he stood for, so there wasn't that appetite for him anyway. But I think, look, he might have handled the protests and the riots that we've seen pretty well. I think that's what the majority of the public think. But I think when you're now seeing big payouts to public sector workers, when there's this 22 billion black hole that the Treasury is sort of claiming that needs to be filled because of the last government, when you're actually sort of cancelling winter fuel payments to pensioners, that is something that really does cut through. And I think that's probably the reason why his popularity has sunk just 2 months in.
He has made a few moves that are going to make him unpopular with a couple of groups. JJ, what do you think in general? How's he doing?
I think he's doing pretty well. It shows that he's tough and he's decisive, that he's making decisions that are difficult and other people perhaps wouldn't have made. Within this poll, it's important to remember that of all the politicians who were asked about, he was still the most popular. And compared to Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson, your old chum, and Liz Truss at the same time, 50 days into their terms, he is polling much better than all of them. So in the grand scheme of things, he's doing better than our most recent prime ministers.
OK, but that's not really creating a very high bar, is it? We haven't had a long list of prime ministers that the country really got behind of late.
The other thing I would say, sorry, Storm, is that the question of do people regret voting Labour and then people saying the country's moving in the wrong direction are two separate things. Do people regret voting Labour? Well, as you say, I'm a Labour voter, but I voted for Labour because I didn't want to vote for the Tories and I didn't want to vote for Reform or anyone else, so I had to vote for Labour. I had no choice. More people turned out to vote for Jeremy Corbyn than voted for Keir Starmer and the party this time round. But the country going in the wrong direction, that question was asked just a few days after the riots. So looking objectively at the riots across the country and brown people being scared to go into the streets, then you would say, yeah, actually the country's going in the wrong direction. But if you ask people again in 4 months' time, maybe it'll be a different answer.
It's interesting, though, that you say that, you voted Labour because there was nobody else to vote for. And actually, Charlie, you broadly agreed with that statement. Actually, people weren't voting for Labour for Keir Starmer. They were voting against something else or because there wasn't another option for them. Even with that in mind, because that was still sort of the case maybe August last year, his approval ratings have still gone down from there. So something has gone wrong for Keir. What do you think it is that has put people off?
I don't think anything has gone wrong for him specifically. I think it's quite normal for the Prime Minister's approval rating to dip a short while into their term. That's history repeating, so that isn't so surprising. But as Charlie said, he's not inspiring. This is not a Tony Blair character. This is not a Barack Obama character. When you hear Keir Starmer speak, I just want to take the mick out of him. It's like, well, we're going to do this and we're going to stop. Shut up, mate. No one's interested. He loses me instantly. He's not an inspiring character. And I think Britain, especially at the moment, we need a character leading this country who's going to make us feel proud to be British and proud that we have something good to look forward to in the future.
So you would like a change?
Oh, yes.
Already?
Yes. What a good idea. What a good idea.
Get me Angela Rayner. Stay with Labour and get in Angela Rayner.
Oh, all right. Do you think that there's anything Keir Starmer has done particularly right? You mentioned the riots. There's nothing that he's U-turned on. He's definitely fulfilled all of his promises, it looks like he is sticking to all his pledges during his manifesto, which there hasn't been any massive U-turns since he's been Prime Minister. That is surely going to count in his favour.
Well, I think what the problem that the Labour government got is that there doesn't appear to be a strategy. So there's lots of ideas, but there's no strategy. So coming in on day one to say, I'm going to cancel the Rwanda plan. So whatever you think about Rwanda, lots of opinions either way. But, that was supposed to be a deterrent. That was binned. He then sort of said, we're going to have to release a number of prisoners because prison places are full. Well, he's now going to have to bang up a load of prisoners that were rioting only 2 weeks ago. So I'm not quite sure where we are with the prison places anymore. He's then had to say, having campaigned not to cancel, for example, that winter fuel allowance, that's now going to have to be ditched because that's what Rachel Reeves has already announced. No new taxes or no increase in taxes. Well, what they said during the election campaign, that will be coming in the autumn. Rachel Reeves has already alluded to that. Then the odd announcements about more homes. OK, that's great, but, devil's in the detail. Then you've seen public sector pay rises when actually the public are still talking about immigration, and we've seen on the back of those riots. So it ties in with what JJ was saying about the direction of the country. So, going too top-heavy on the protesters, for one, is... You've got to do it because it's just mindless thuggery. But how are you actually going to deal with the number of migrants that are in hotels? That's a bill to the taxpayer when you're cancelling that winter fuel payment for pensioners. How are you actually going to tackle illegal immigration, which is such a hot topic for everybody across this country? He seems to be absent on that question. So when it actually comes to the real issues that people are talking about up and down the country, I don't think we've seen Keir Starmer in action.
Yeah, illegal immigration and legal migration both were much worse under the Tories. It was under the Tory government that we let in legally people from abroad. And the Tories were happy to do that. Boris Johnson was happy to pay us money to bring in Ukrainian refugees. Labour are actually reducing that. In terms of illegal migration, stopping the small boats, they're 6 weeks in. They're 6 weeks in.
You may have noticed we have a scale 1 to 10 here. You may be wondering why. We are asking you to vote on whether you would give Keir Starmer in his 6 weeks in the top spot 10 out of 10 or, well, we would say nil point, but 1. So a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think Keir Starmer's doing? So Keir would be 10 out of 10 would be 10 out of 10. JJ, what do you think?
I think I'd give him a 7.
You would give him a 7?
I think a 7, honestly, yeah. I can't agree with every single thing that he's done, but the big issues, mostly it's just been the riots, and he handled that really, really well.
A 7, all right.
7.
Well, it's not a glowing report, but it's definitely a pass. What would you say, Charlie?
Well, I think I'm going to be quite fair and say 4.
Below average.
Not terrible, not the worst, but not great, and maybe not even a pass.